Frog. Frog.
Toad? I think we should just be quiet. What if he comes back?
I can't take it anymore, Frog.
What do you mean, Toad?
All he does is talk about movies and I can't take it anymore.
Toad, we aren't supposed to leave.
I'm making a break for it, Frog.
Toad, don't do it.
I'm gonna do it, Frog.
Toad, abort mission.
Goodbye, Frog. I'll send help.
Toad, no!
Frog and Toad were a series of children's books from the 70s, written and illustrated by Arnold Lobel. They were about two best friends named, well, Frog and Toad, who had day-to-day adventures where they would look for a lost button, go for a swim, be brave, learn to have willpower, eat ice cream, etc. And while these stories weren't the most thrilling, they were still stories that could entertain you and maybe even teach you something new. 3 books were made: Frog and Toad Are Friends, Frog and Toad Together, and Frog and Toad All Year. The short stories went on to be recognized as a Caldecott Honor Book, Newbery Honor Book, and even won a Christopher Award in 1977. Now you may be wondering, hey punk, why are you talking about old children's books? It's a very good question that I will answer now. In the 80s, Churchill Films produced many direct-to-video children's films, including The Mouse and the Motorcycle, The Jungle, The Adventures of Curious George, and 2 18-minute adaptations of the first 2 Frog and Toad books. They were done using claymation stop motion. Both of these films were directed by John Clark Matthews, who also did the music theme and was the principal animator. Frog was voiced by Will Ryan, whose voice you might recognize from An American Tail. Toad was voiced by Hal Smith, who you might recognize from The Andy Griffith Show.
You ain't gonna string me up for just a little drinking, that ain't right.
Arnold Lobel narrated both shorts before tragically passing away in 1987. As a kid, I used to love reading the Frog and Toad books, and a big reason for this was because I would watch the VHS all the time. Now this was until a brother of mine, who we'll call Kermie, accidentally recorded over the VHS with a soap opera my parents used to watch. I vowed that one day I would get my revenge, and he would regret ever pressing record that one cold, rainy night. I never did get my revenge because 7 years later, he just got me a new tape. The VHS has both films, a 10-minute special on the making of Frog and Toad Are Friends, plus the one and only episode of Commander Toad in Space. So sit back, relax, and enjoy my review for everything on this tape. The 1985 film Frog and Toad Are Friends sticks to the same exact stories from the book with the same name. We see Frog and Toad at the beginning of spring, Toad dealing with writer's block, Frog and Toad looking for Toad's button, Toad feeling insecure about his bathing suit, and Toad wishing somebody would send him a letter. This film doesn't have much to it. All the stories are very straightforward and simple, but something about the old animation and the chemistry between Frog and Toad makes this to be very entertaining, at least for children, or anyone that likes classic claymation. The music fits very nicely, the voices for Frog and Toad are perfect in my opinion, and the animation is very impressive for its time. For the swimming short, all the water effects were accomplished by using a machine called a beam splitter. This basically let the filmmaker superimpose water onto the animated footage. To make the waves on the water, they would slowly hold up ripple glass in front of the camera and move it down slowly. Overall, I give Frog and Toad Are Friends 4 out of 6 naked frogs. Frog and Toad Together is my favorite of the two. This time we only get 4 stories instead of 5. But because of this, each story is about 4.5 minutes. We get to see Toad start his own garden, Frog and Toad getting the willpower to stop eating cookies, Frog and Toad trying to prove that they're brave, and Toad's psychedelic dream. I find this film to be more enjoyable because it lets itself be more silly than the first. We get more funny little moments, the cinematography is better, and the animation goes a step up. The characters are always moving, to the point where I forget this is all pure stop motion. The camera sometimes pans or dollies out while the protagonists are in motion. For 1987, I find this pretty impressive. The miniature sets they made are very cool to look at. Even if they look fake, there's something very charming about it. I know as a young lad, I try to make my own sets using rocks and construction paper. Not nearly as good as this, but hey, it was a starting point. Lastly, for some reason, Toad's dream always scared me as a kid. The flashing colors, seeing Toad smiling, and witnessing Frog shrink into dust was definitely some nightmare fuel for me. This was before I started watching Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Return the slab. Oh,
Anyways, I think this is a very charming, humorous, enjoyable 18-minute film that is very underrated. No one ever talks about these shorts. If you're a fan of any kind of animations, old movies, or just movies in general, I say watch this.
Yes, but are we?
I give this 5.5 out of 6 scary toads. The VHS includes a 10-minute behind-the-scenes documentary that talks about the making of Frog and Toad together. It talks about everything like the basics of stop motion, set design, armatures, character acting, effects, and a little bit of post-production. This was very inspiring for me and made me want to make my own animations. I didn't have the talent or knowledge animators had, but that didn't stop me from buying my own clay and box and go out and make my own shorts. Eventually I moved on to live action, but that's another story. Commander Toad in Space is a series of children's books by Jane Yolen that's essentially a Toad-themed Star Wars parody. Churchill Films, the same company that produced the Frog and Toad shorts, teamed up with John Clark Matthews again to direct the 23-minute ABC special Commander Toad in Space. The plot revolves around the commander and his crew needing to return Royal Fizban back to its rightful owners. The special is more of a Star Trek parody rather than Star Wars, since Commander Toad is very much like Captain Kirk. Actually, Nichelle Nichols, who plays Uhura in Star Trek, plays a ship called the SS Stella.
Instead of wasting my time, sugar, why don't you play a computer game and I'll rerun one of your old soggy spiels?
To make things even more interesting, Luke Skywalker himself, Mark Hamill, plays the Admiral.
I understand you've received your top secret cargo.
Wow. You can almost hear the Joker's voice slip through.
Oh, no ransom this time, Hammy.
The short does a great job at capturing the feel of a space adventure series like Star Trek and is actually funnier than I expected.
All right, I'm excited too. At last, a real mission.
Oh, give me 5.
What do you want, money?
The visuals are awesome to look at, and nothing beats good old sets, matte paintings, and animatronics. Speaking of animatronics, they look great. Not Jim Henson great, but still pretty good. The frog reminds me of the Ninja Turtles from the 90s movies. Hold on. The guy that voiced Commander Toad is James Murray. That means he's the same guy that voiced Master Splinter in Turtles 3.
Just like Elvis in Blue Hawaii.
Both Commander Toad and Turtles 3 came out the same year. Interesting. Nevertheless, I found Commander Toad to be a funny and good-looking special. I do feel the pacing felt just a little too slow for a 20-minute film, but other than that, a solid story, cool effects, great characters, and a great time for anyone that's a sci-fi fan. I give it 5 out of 6 Doc Peppers.
I don't think this galaxy's ready for 2 Commander Toads.
The galaxy can't even
To recap, I found these films to be fun, charming, and entertaining. The box, however, says that it's made for children's 2 to 6. But I don't think this is true. Or is it? I can see adults finding enjoyment out of these shorts, especially if you're a fan of claymation animation. And that's it for today. Until next time, don't forget to please be kind. Rewind. Now if you excuse me, I have my own shorts to finish.